Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of
Not Fighting.
I am your host, joined alongside me by my sidekick, Jena Bishop. I'm Tyler Bishop, of course. Do you like
I'm your sidekick?
Yeah.
No, I feel like you're my sidekick.
Yeah.
If anything, come on.
And
I'm Batman, you're Robin.
I thought if I framed it that way, you would immediately have a response.
You know me well.
Yeah, I do, and I think that's one of those things that I think just in general, like when people get warmed up to us, like our podcast listeners, for example.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times, like I'm kind of the softer one up front. People will always reference.
I will disagree.
I know you've been told before you have RBF.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't really respond to that. Yes.
But I think it's funny
I have been
because,
told that.
like, realistically, if the warmer and more empathetic between the two of us is definitely you.
Yes.
But I think, like, I probably give off that sort of, like, oh, he seems really nice, like, and friendly. And realistically, it's like...
My, like, initial exterior is very, like, don't talk to me.
Do you want to fight me?
Yes.
I have a problem with you.
But I'm actually like more warm and concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you love animals. And I feel like that those two qualities go together where it's like you almost have to earn that person's sort of like, I don't want to say affection. That makes it sound like you're a bad person.
No, but I know what you're going with. It's not you have to earn my affection. You have to earn my trust, where I feel like you might be more trusting up front.
That's a good question. I don't know that I'm more trusting up front.
I don't know that trust is the right thing the word that we're like describing.
Yeah.
I don't feel like any of us are like, or either of us are trusting.
I think your default state is skeptical, and my default state is like, let's see.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it's kind of the same. But mine has more of a negative connotation.
Yeah, that's why we complement each other well. I feel like, like we both are arriving at the same conclusion where it's like, I want to evaluate this person. You're like, let me wait and see. And I'm like, let me go poke them and figure out.
And I'm like, prove to me.
And then all our friends are like, why were you poking me? Like, physically poking me. I was like, I want to see. We want to see how you respond. Jen was going to evaluate you and let me know. Which one of the two of us do you think is actually a better judge of character, though?
Me.
Immediately? You didn't even think about it. I was like thinking about it as I was asking the question. You just responded immediately.
No, because here's the thing, because I think where this is something that I don't like about myself, where I am like kind of judgmental up front. I also do think it makes me very aware of when people are like just full of it. Like we always say, like I have like a good BS detector, and I'm just like, get that out of here. Like I can tell when you're whatever. And me trying to not be that way has kind of burned me here recently. Like trying to like give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. And
it's burned me a couple times, and against my better judgment.
Yeah,
but
so, again, back to the question. Like,
I am a better judge of character. I'm a better judge of character.
I mean, you kind of just like you threw your own track record under the bus there.
No. I'm saying me trying to like just be a nicer human and more open and has like burned me.
Which one of us do you think?
So I think that my salty, like just negative character is better.
It's better. Yeah, that's where
I don't need to be a better human. I'm perfect.
That's where the yes comes from. Is like your default state is elitism. Which one of
so is yours.
Which one of the two of us do you think would be a better politician? You
for sure. I can't be a politician because there's no way that I could deal with those people where you can like. That's why I think I don't know.
See, I question this because I think you're going to be way more careful about what you say, and if you take Donald Trump out of the equation, I think all you look at someone like me, and then I like get off stage at a rally, and they're like, "Remember how you said you were going to raise taxes?" And I was like, "I was just speaking off the cuff." They're like, "Yeah, but you said that thing about raising taxes." I was like, "I'll just tell them I didn't mean it."
No, but I'm not somebody who can speak to like large groups of people, and that's what you do. Like I'm better one-on-one, so I would be good as like the behind the scenes person for a politician, but you would be better as the face. So you would be the better politician. Like you would be the better Joe Biden, and I would be the
the rest of the Democratic Party.
Everyone else that's telling him what to do.
Yeah,
not to get too political here, but we're talking about politicians.
Neither of us, I think, would make great politicians because I think you do let me get up in front of people. Like I'm gonna be like, "Hey, everybody, politics is magic," and they're just like, and they'd be like, "No, this guy." It's like
falling downstairs and stuff.
Yeah, I might do that. Like. I mean, when Biden fell down the stairs, he fell up the stairs.
Yeah, this is worse.
We need to stop paying attention to like how presidents get along in terms of going up and down stairs on planes.
Or like if that's what we're caring about, maybe just like put a limit on how old they can be.
Yeah, or how many stairs they can go up.
That's why we're talking about it, because we are like, he's old and not competent to run this country, right? Like that's what people are worried about.
That's the insinuation.
That's what the worry,
negative perception.
Yes,
yeah.
And so it's just like. Yeah, like if they're not allowed to be that old and run the country, then this problem solved. We ain't got to worry about that.
Well, didn't dang it, wasn't Franklin Roosevelt? Didn't he have polio and had to be in a wheelchair, and they like tried to hide that for a long time?
Sounds right.
Well, I don't know. Do your own research.
Yeah,
but
I know he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, yeah. I just wonder, like, if. What would we hide if we were politicians? Like, what is the thing that we're like, we can't let them know about, like, Tyler not having any ACLs? So they'll be like, I don't trust a guy with no ACLs.
That's something you want to hide from your opponents in a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
Actually, not really, because it's hard to knee bar you because you don't have ACLs.
It's true. Like, there was a couple weeks ago, I was rolling with JJ, and JJ had like a knee bar, heel hook situation going on. Dead to rights, JJ, you had it. But he was like looking at me, and then he was like looking at Professor Johnny, and Johnny was like shaking his head, just like, I don't know, it seems like you got it. And I was like, you do got it, but just like for whatever reason,
I got a lot of mobility.
Yeah, there's a lot of room here, so like I don't
a lot of
feel
extra mobility.
I'll let you know. Yeah, I always say you need 3 out of the 4 like ligaments of the knee, and yep. If you've got,
I mean, I know some people that are getting away with just one.
Justin?
I'm not gonna call anybody out. I don't know who it was.
Someone not named Justin. One of the two. But yeah, I think it's one of those things this is something you and I like kind of, I would say, subscribe to as like a general philosophy. We agree on a lot of things, but one of the things I think is, I've had an orthopedic doctor that told me this, and I've obviously bought and subscribed to it, but it's the idea that like, if you injure something, a surgery is what you do whenever like it doesn't get better, or it doesn't return to normal function. But like, let's say you break something, you tear something, you don't necessarily have to have a surgery to repair it. You really just need to get back like your normal function. So if that's being a high level athlete, that's being a high level athlete. If it's like, I don't know, being able to get your coffee in the morning, I don't know what normal people do, but yeah, it's that. What I mean, do you think that there's flaws in that? Like, do you wholesale subscribe to that the way I do?
No, I do. Maybe more so than you do.
Whoa, double down! You're the one making like the extreme statements.
I've been married to you for a long time. So.
Yeah, you know how to do it.
Yeah. No, I think that I would agree with that because, like, having a surgery is another injury on top of an injury. So if your injury is gonna if your body is like, the body is like capable of these crazy workarounds. I was talking about this with somebody, I don't even remember who, so I'm not gonna go in there. But it was just like, they gave an example of like how the body like kind of worked around some kind of injury or whatever, and it's just like, like you don't always just need to like surgery right away, because you might learn to function without it. And there might be other things like you're going to have to rehab, you're going to have to do those things, but you don't have to like necessarily just resort to surgery and adding another injury to your injury. I don't know. So for me, like, less doctors, the better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm
a big believer in stem cells, because I've had them and had like
that
really,
they exist.
I believe that they exist.
Unlike birds.
And not on birds. Those are machines.
Yeah.
And then, but I believe that like, and I think that like there's a lot of really cool things in modern medicine happening, but I don't know that surgery is always the best option. Surgery is the option that you need when something's not getting better on its own.
Yeah. So surgery is a really serious option if you think about it, because we will at some point have other methodologies that are probably like more sophisticated. So we'll look back at the time that we like physically like cut open our bodies with, sharp objects, and then like, hammered or screwed things in their bones, like my first ACL repair.
Didn't you watch the video?
Yeah.
Like, and how did that even happen?
So honestly, like looking back, I'm like, I don't remember signing like a HIPAA thing to like, so when they did my ACL surgery, I'm like a 17-year-old
Yeah,
kid.
you're 17, so you didn't sign anything. Your mom did.
Yeah, so she probably did.
So Holly didn't.
She got bullied into it. Mom, come on. Like, how are you going to let me get bullied into being like a science experiment? But apparently, when they did my surgery, they had it in one of those classes where it's like other doctors could watch. And they're like, now look, see, we're going to just cut it open. Oops, well, cut the wrong one open. Just and sew that one back up.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that.
They did write an X on my other knee, which made me nervous. They were just like, not this knee. And I was like, you need the markers to know? Like,
did you have to sign your knee, initial it?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that was a thing until like one of our friends, she just had it surgery and her repaired. And I was like, oh, she's like, yeah, I can't get this freaking marker off.
I feel like there's no way that holds up in like a real courtroom where they're like, he signed his own knee.
He initialed it.
And they're like, before or after he took anesthetics. And you're just like, well, I don't know.
We don't know when that happened.
We don't know what he was taking before he got there. But I feel like, yeah, so they filmed it for like a class. And then whenever I came back in, I actually had like a complication to where my quadricep wasn't firing. So they noticed like a month after surgery, I was still using my other leg to like lift my leg up and put it like onto things. Mm-hmm. And they were like, you should be able to extend your leg by now. And I'm like, I can't. I just remember looking at my leg and not being able to extend it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, your quadricep muscles aren't firing. And so they had to give me a stem machine and all that stuff. And I was like, basically trying to ask and find out like why that is. And I just remember them wheeling in like a television monitor, like it's like, you got a substitute teacher or something, like on a cart. I don't remember asking like, hey, do you have a video of my surgery that would make me understand why my quadriceps not firing? So they wheel that in. They're like, it's a really violent surgery. You never know what's going to happen. And then they wheel this in. They're like, this is actually your surgery. And they just fast forward and they got to this part where it's him and my knee is bent up like a 90-degree angle. If you're watching on the podcast, you can kind of see I've got my leg up like this. And there's the guy has like a hammer and like a pick that you would like, try to break up some ice.
Like an axe.
Yeah. And he's just hammering it. And like, you can tell he's like, tink, tink. And then he's like, it's not going in.
More pressure.
Yes. And then he like gets back on it, and then he's like, so that's why it's sore. And I'm like, no wonder. Like, that doesn't seem like a good way.
Yeah.
So that's a
Seems
roundabout.
Barbaric.
Yeah. So to me, it's like if you tear your ACL or something like that, like that experience of getting it repaired and having somebody hammer into your knee, like that's pretty traumatic too. So whatever's wrong, like
not only did they cut you open, they used a hammer and chisel on your knee.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like don't get your like ACL repaired. It's definitely one of those things that I think most athletes need to get repaired. I've
had one repaired and then you didn't get it repaired or the other.
I'm not a repeat customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got one chance, doctors.
Yeah, one chance. You couldn't even get it right, and guess what? Now I tore the other one.
Yep.
Your move.
Which is kind of something that like because our dog tore his little puppy ACL.
Yeah.
And they said
not
like
Cash, for those that know.
Yeah, or our other male. He had we got it repaired, but the only reason we did is because they said he would like get by without it and he'd be able to like do like function normally, but arthritis would for sure be a big issue. But they said that they're really likely to tear the other one if they have one weak ACL. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I don't want him to have like no back legs that are functioning properly. So we got it repaired. But so that's probably why you tore both of yours.
Yeah, and so anyways, long story short is I'm willing to give my dog better care than I'm willing to give myself. Or I guess
We are.
Like, we need to get him his little dog ACL repaired. Meanwhile, it's like, well, you know what? You can get along without it. It's harder to knee bar you, so it's an advantage, I
We
guess.
don't know how much pain he is in. We know how much pain you're in.
Yep.
So.
Not much.
Not enough to repair it.
In fact, without an ACL, like, that's a pain you don't have anymore. Like, guess what never hurts? My ACL.
Yeah, but does it hurt anyway?
I mean, my knees hurt bad from not having the ACL, you know? All those knee bars that I just don't tap to.
Oh my God. So, it's your choice.
No, I do think it's interesting. And speaking of like injuries and stuff like that, I think all the time, like people ask me all the time about like what is my worst injury, because people see my hands or whatever. And they're like, oh, did that hurt? And realistically, it's like if you've ever dislocated a finger, which I have literally 24 times maybe, it's like it's actually not painful, at least not after the first time.
You freak out when it happens though.
Yeah, but
you scream like a girl.
Well, I mean, that was over exaggerated. I don't scream like a girl.
Well,
I don't. But realistically, it's more like surprising, like shocking, like someone jumping out of a closet at you or something, where you're like, yeah, okay, I'm just put it back in.
Also, screamed like a girl when I scared him once. So if I know what your surprise scream is, same as your pain scream.
Do you remember what I did? For those that are just listening, I came home and I didn't know Jenna was home, and she like jumped out of the hallway at me, and I just go, I like slowly build the scream, but as I did, I just lifted my hands up next to my face like Home Alone, but did it so slowly.
It was like the worst like reaction / non-reaction.
If you know the people that say like you only have 2 reactions, fight or flight, I feel like that was an example of like sometimes we don't know.
Just be stricken with fear and stand still. I was really concerned about my safety because I think at that point we hadn't been married very long. And I was like, man, what if there was somebody in the house and we came home? That's how you're going to respond. Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you've taken the person down and they're unconscious.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a pedophile.
I already handled the situation.
Yeah. The pedophile references into our last episode. So if you didn't watch the last episode, just
I don't want to talk about that anymore.
I'm just saying, like, I want to give like context to the pedophile statement.
Okay.
I just want to be throwing it out there. Like pedophiles might be breaking into our house or something, which they might be if you have like that show. But
yeah. Why would they?
No.
Anyway,
so my long-winded point is basically like, what do you think is the worst injury, like, or most painful injury you've had?
The most painful injury I've had?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know, honestly, because I've had a lot of ones that are painful. Like, you know, I've done a few things to my knees, but not completely torn them.
No, you've got good knees.
Yeah. It's more like bursitis stuff, like where you like slam your knee in the mat. Mm-hmm. And like that's kind of the only things I've done to my knees really bad. Maybe like a sprain, and ankles. Most painful?
You got like elbow. Everybody in jiu-jitsu, I feel like, has elbow, but I feel like yours are worse than mine.
I think my elbow, like, one of the things with my elbow, it's like it got stuck, like, inward, and it wasn't even, like, a submission thing. And that's, like, probably one of the more painful things that's happened, because it was, like, I remember for, like, a day, like, I couldn't drive, like, because, like, with that hand. Because it's, like,
was this, like, way back when you were, like, a white belt or blue belt?
Yep.
Dang, that's crazy.
No, I don't remember it.
I remember when you hurt maybe it was your shoulder, but I thought it was like you were rolling with a dude that was like a brown belt from some other place that like everybody's like, who is this guy? And he tried to do like a rolling omoplata to you from like a weird spot when you were like a white belt or blue belt. And I remember
I was a white belt, and I hurt my elbow. I think it was my shoulder, my elbow and shoulder, because he put his whole hip through my arm and it was straight. And I think that's why anything happens to my elbow now, it's like it's kind of sore. But honestly, one of the things that's the worst is like if you've trained jiu-jitsu long enough, like, and you're gonna have like bad elbows, like some kind of arthritis in your elbows or tendonitis
or spine.
Yeah, in all your joints. But one of the things, and I've talked to multiple people, it's like when you're trying, like if your elbow gets like pushed to your hand gets pushed to your shoulder, it's like it feels like your elbow's going to explode.
Yeah.
And it's not like a long pain, but it's like it's really intense for like a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, I got to move my arm. Like, can't have it there. And that's probably one of the more painful things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, a lot of the injuries that you have in jiu-jitsu, the more painful stuff I always feel like is it's like not necessarily that the injury itself is bad, it's that it stems from the fact that like that's an injury on top of multiple injuries that you've had before. Like that's why I was thinking back to like, you as like a white belt, blue belt having something that was an injury and that being something that like later on ends up being, like a pain point. But like, my neck, my knees, whatever. It's like I heard all those things playing football before I ever heard them playing jiu-jitsu.
I think what's one of the more painful things too that has happened is like cauliflower ear. The one time I had it, like it's been twice that it's kind of been irritated and swollen, and it's like every time you touch it, it's painful. It's like annoying, but I don't think I've had anything that's like super extreme pain for me. I don't know. Yeah,
I can't think of anything either. You've been like, realistically, for somebody that's been doing jiu-jitsu,
it's all like little things, like banged up here and there. But
yeah,
the worst I would have is like a sunburn in training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Which is why I'm like a little bit different colored legs and shoulders right now because we went hiking today and I was forgot sunscreen on my shoulders.
Yeah. So if you're sitting someplace
covered
right now,
my face, but not my shoulders.
Yeah, if you're sitting someplace right now where it's like real cold or snowing, sorry for that, but yeah,
it was a beautiful day in San Diego.
Gorgeous. We hiked along the beach. Anyways, I think the sunburn thing is like legit. Like nothing is worse than like doing like the warm up down the line drills, like where you're doing like hip escapes and stuff like that.
And it's like you first start rubbing up against your sunburn.
I'll never forget when we were in Miami. I had the worst sunburn. My skin was already peeling off, and I put my gi on, and we trained there in Miami that night. And then I got off the mat, and all my skin that was peeling was gone.
Yeah,
it just like came off inside that gi.
Yep. So you can get another fresh sunburn the next day.
Yep, and I sure did. And that was the 4th or 5th time that I lost a wedding ring too that day.
Oh, you did in there?
I lost it at that academy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, for those that don't know, or I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I've lost a lot of wedding rings.
3?
At least, yeah. I mean, if you don't count like
we're
the
not
cheap
counting.
rubber ones.
We're not counting the rubber ones because I didn't buy those for you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I've lost a few.
A couple of them.
First one within 48 hours of getting married.
Yep, in the ocean.
Yep. You literally were like, make sure you take your wedding ring off, and like
because it was loose. We needed to go when we didn't have time before our honeymoon to go get it like refit, like resized, and you didn't try it on before then. So I was like, be careful, we're gonna have to get it resized.
And we'd been in the water for like 15 minutes. Or not even 15 minutes, like 15 seconds. And so it would have had to have came off the moment I got in the water. Because when you asked me, I was like, uh-oh, I bet I took it off. There's no way I could have like just lost it this fast, right? Little did I know that I was going to lose many more wedding rings.
You could have lost it that quickly, and you did.
So it is interesting, I think, that like you have been relatively healthy given just how active you've been in jiu-jitsu, and especially as a competitor. I haven't been quite as fortunate, but I usually always tell people it's like in jiu-jitsu, you're going to have knees, shoulders. If you're really unlucky, both, everybody gets elbows. And, but all those things, none of them are as painful to me is a staph infection that I had in my lower leg. That by far was the most painful, quote unquote, injury I've ever had.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I can speak to what I saw from you, and you like couldn't even stand up because every time you would stand up, you said like it would like all just like blood rushing to that area and would just like be murderous like pain.
It was intense to the point to where I remember even like weeks after being treated with antibiotics in the hospital and stuff, we went to a Target and I couldn't even just stand still while you were shopping or whatever. I like literally had to keep moving because standing still, like I felt like the blood would pool or something would happen, but I just basically like had to stay on the move when I was on my feet.
And so I was like doing a little like a tinkle dance.
Yep. Yep. My tinkle dance. But yeah, I think it is something that like ever since then I take it super seriously, just because like you have any sign of something like that, and I think that that's something in jiu-jitsu where it's like I feel like so many people learn that the hard way.
What, to take staph infections seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, they should be taken seriously. Any kind of skin infection, really, because, I mean, staph is, like, more dangerous, right? Because, like, it can be deadly. Or you could lose, like, a limb or, like, a lot of, like, tissue from it. So it should be taken seriously.
I feel like in some places, ringworm is treated extremely seriously. In some places, it's, like, not serious at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, if you have ringworm, you should definitely, like, treat that and cover it up and, like, not be training with people exposing him. But, like, also, like, I'm not too worried about it. If I get ringworm, it's going to be annoying, but it's not, like, the worst thing. Right?
I definitely feel like there's...
I just make sure I shower a lot.
I feel like we draw, like, a really, really broad, I guess, solid line there. Yeah. I feel like people are going to fall on one side or the other, but I'm with you, where I'm like, if I get ringworm, I'm not overly freaking out about it. I'm, like, going to treat
gross.
it. I'm going to be respectful.
It's itchy.
I'm going to cover it, whatever. But, like, I don't know. I feel like I had it for, like, 3 years when I was a blue belt.
Yeah. You gave it to me.
Yep. I remember a friend of ours gave it to his wife, and she didn't do jiu-jitsu, and, like, she never let that go.
No. My sister got it, but not from jiu-jitsu, from a tanning bed.
I remember the worst ringworm I ever saw was from a guy that actually came back. He was doing a tour in Iraq, and when he got back, he had some weird Middle Eastern strain of ringworm, but he basically had what looked like a giant map of the United States on his back. Like, that's what it was shaped like.
It's weird that the Irani, like, or Middle Eastern ringworm would look like the U.S.
Yeah. What I thought was funny about that was he would always just be like, that's how you know I'm a Marine. Like, the ringworm I got there, it is in the shape of the United States.
Yes.
And that's how he talked. Actually, he didn't talk at all that way.
No.
Really?
If you're talking about who I think, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think that there's a certain amount of that is just sort of like the culture. And I think that that's one of the things that we talk about a lot is like the culture of an academy really starts at the top, you know, like the tone is kind of set by, I don't know, the head instructor or just like whatever the professor is. But it's interesting because it's like, it's literally everything down to if people take ringworm seriously or not.
It's very true. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm yawning. I can't breathe through my nose right now, so I'm not getting enough oxygen, but, no, allergies. No, I definitely think that like, stop. Every little thing that happens, like, I think the head instructor, the like the main person, like that all like trickles down.
Yeah. And I think that is a learning philosophy too, right? Like, if you want to learn like jiu-jitsu at academy, there's people that are like really open-minded, people that are like really old school. Our good friend of the show, Nick Moose-Schrock, shout out to Nick Schrock. Recently he'd like gone home and he was like, he said he was teaching like defenses to like worm guard or like ways to address it or whatever. And I just remember like thinking at the time, like going back like 6-7 years ago when like Keenan was kind of the one that was like really doing a lot with the lapel stuff, and how many people from like the old school were just like, oh, like just like extend your leg and like that won't work, and
that's not gonna work.
Yeah, there was so much of that, and I just remember thinking like, you know, that draws a solid line, sort of like the ringworm thing, where it's like you have the people that are like, oh yeah, don't pay attention to that. That's just like this like lame trick. And
well, it's another thing, like kind of an old school thought is I remember one of my students like freaking out about getting straight ankle locked, and she was a blue belt, and she's like, no, like we were told like we're not allowed to do those like leg locks, and it was like, yeah, no, in most rule sets doing having a straight ankle lock like it's legal at white belt, but she was told in her school, in her thing, that was wrong and you couldn't do it. So like freaked out even though like she wasn't in a bad situation, like she could have escaped it, and like then doesn't even know how to handle it. And I think like that's a hard line that was drawn, but like it also makes it way worse for your students long term if you just say like we don't do those techniques.
Yeah, no, I agree. So with that in mind, like it actually like you and I are like lockstep aligned with that, but at the same time I would say you and I both agree that like there's some like BS technique, or there's like an approach to some like types of learning where it's like, well, maybe like not everybody can teach you something type thing, you know what I mean? And like where do you draw that line where, you know what I mean, where somebody's like working on something that you've never seen before and you're like, oh no, that's BS, versus like, oh no, yeah, like we should learn this?
I mean, I don't think it's like I don't think you have to draw a line all the time. I think there's certain things where how I would draw the line and how I would approach it to my students is it like, okay, like if this is some like kind of crazy fancy technique, like something new, or most people haven't seen, I wouldn't tell them like that I don't think you should just be like, no, that's not going to work, or that's invalid. It's like, okay, we can like figure it out and see how it's going to happen. Like, or we can be like, okay, that's cool and all. Like, I'm glad you want to like explore that, but also like you don't even know how to do a proper hip escape or something like that. So like maybe we should work on the fundamentals first, but not just tell them like we don't do that. That's not allowed. Like making that hard and fast rule. It's like encourage them to like have a solid foundation.
But aren't you the one that loves the rules?
I do love rules, but that doesn't mean, I feel like in jiu-jitsu, that's like, it's something that when you know the rules, you can break the rules.
Yep.
And that's something that I'm okay with but that's only regarding technique. It's not regarding where I'm a rule follower. It's about like we're fighting under this rule set, not about the technique rules. Yeah. It's very different.
It is funny because I do think we think kind of similar to that in jiu-jitsu, where it's like rule number 1 is like know the rules and like understand them, and then rule number 2 is you can break the rules.
Yes.
But like rule number 2 is predicated on following
understanding. Yeah. We were talking about somebody today where they have like a really weird style, and then it's like they want to teach that same principles or those techniques that work for them, but they're probably not going to work for the majority of people to their students. But it's like they also have so many years of grappling experience that it's when you've felt people and you've rolled like that for so long, you can understand like when this technique's going to work and not work. And there's just like that give and take. So it doesn't make sense to show that to somebody day one. Yeah,
it's like those tricks work great whenever you've got 10 years or 20 years of like salty experience in the room with like top shelf jiu-jitsu people, versus like trying those tricks and you've got zero experience with people that really understand like fundamentals really well.
Yeah, I think it's just a very different thing. So I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you know, like I am more of the like, well, we'll see. The rules are sort of like whatever, and you're more of the follower. And I do think that like we complement each other in that way, but I think jiu-jitsu is where we kind of find like that marriage of like, yeah, there is some structure here and there are hard lines, but like once you know where they are, you can like kind of jump across them.
Yeah. Yes. When it comes to just like free form technique flowing with things, not when it comes to the rules of the sport.
Yeah, that's true. And
that's different.
That's an area where I think we complement each other. And I think we actually complement each other in a lot of different traits that we have. Yeah. And that's one thing that always drives me crazy. I heard something earlier this week, and it was a podcast, and it was somebody that was talking about relationships, and they were like, well, in a relationship, you want to find somebody that is really similar to yourself, so that you have like the same goals, the same whatever. You want to put yourself around people that are just like you.
You need to have things in common.
Yeah, and it's not even just stuff in common, but it's like you want to have somebody that has like the same traits, so that like you guys will have these things. Yeah, I guess in common.
Yeah.
But
having things in common and being this like having the same personality are very different.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people get confused, because it's like always like the cliche of like opposites attract. And I think that for you and I, it's like we have so much in common, and there's a lot of things like we're both very driven, and like we value a lot of we have like the same values, but personality wise we're so different. Yeah. And I think that's where people like kind of get confused in relationships. You know, it's like I don't want somebody that's the same as me, because then like if we're both the same, I feel like because we're different like in our personalities, it like we actually can like push each other like a lot, like, and kind of like I don't know, we can grow and become like better people because we can kind of point out things, or like, or I see something that you have in your personality that I'm like I admire, and it kind of inspires me to like you know, be better at something that I don't have. Yeah,
and it's sort of the same way with me. It's like I can see the way that you interact with like kids or women in your classes, and just see how much you like genuinely care about their lives and like care about them. And it sort of inspires me to want to be like, well, you know what? Like where I just maybe want to stay out of other people's business. Like maybe I'll be like a little bit more warm or like kind or welcoming, because I see from you the example of like what that brings to your life, like the fulfillment, or also just like the reward of like, oh, look, that person is like excelling in life, and it's partially because of like the energy that you put into them. Yeah. And I think that that's where we complement each other with the sort of the rules thing too, where it's like, look, these rules are here, but like if you step outside of them a little bit, check it out, like there's some opportunities. Whereas like you'll point out to me like, look, you're trying to be really creative here, but there's like no way around it if you let the person get under your head from half guard. Like that's just bad. Like there's no good that comes from that.
Being too cute.
Yeah,
I have to tell you that a lot.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It's like we complement each other in that well, where it's like I'll get you to the point of creativity, and then you'll get me, like you'll pull me back from being too cute.
Yes. I'm like, you're doing too much. And then you like, I think it's really, really good for us both, like having that where, especially in the scenarios where like you pushing me to like step outside the boundaries, because I think a lot of times like the people who are just rule followers, whatever, it's like, there's only so much like success in life or things that so much you can achieve if you're just always playing by the rules. Because the people who are like super successful, like, and just in life in general, it's like they're not always playing by the rules, or they learn how to game the rules. And it's like, if you look at it just very cut and dry, like that's kind of my tendency. It was like, this is how it's supposed to be, or like it's something that like we joke around about all the time in my family. It's like everything has to be fair, like it has to be. And it's like, well, you know, and even though I heard like my whole life everything was like we had to be fair, like there's 4 kids and everything needs to be exactly the same for all of them, it's got to be equal, because I don't want things to seem like one way or another. But then also I heard a lot like, well, life's not fair. You know, when I say, it's not fair, it's like, well, life's not fair. It's just like, and that's so true though. It's like, life isn't fair. And so if you kind of have taught me how to like, you know, think outside of the lines a little bit, to where the rules are there, but like, I don't have to follow them to a T, or I can like use the rules to get around the rules, you know, type of a thing.
I would say like one thing that's really benefited us and me throughout my life is being able to say like, if somebody can achieve something that like I aspire to, or I recognize as like virtuous, like my first thought is like, why can't I do that? Like I can, like, I'll just do that, you know? And I think that's something that when you have someone like yourself that has like an immense amount of potential in a certain, like in your case, it's like fight sports. It's like that attitude is so healthy for you, because it's like, it takes the doubt away, you know? And that's something we talked about last night. We were watching Stipe come out, and this is sort of like in retrospect, it doesn't seem like the best example, but
yeah.
Stipe is a guy that seems like he has zero doubts about his abilities, whether he's going to win. He doesn't seem like a guy that like can't sleep the night before a fight because he's so nervous. He seems like a guy that's like, hey, I got to handle my business, but I'm the best and I believe it,
Yeah. He's just super confident in his abilities and skills. And it seems like there's just no doubt in like anything he's doing. Even, and I think that's such a skill. Like it's really hard because I think when you have like someone like myself, it's like, I don't know, you have to shut out certain voices and you have to like, because there are people, or I think everybody goes through that where it's like, you've had somebody tell you in your life where it's like, well, you're not special, like you're not like whatever. And for me, my worries are, I don't want people to think I'm too cocky or too arrogant. Like I want to just be like, be humble, but like also like sometimes I'm like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure like I know I'm better than that person, but I don't want people to like think that's like me being mean or whatever.
And I have the opposite view where it's like if somebody perceives me to be cocky or arrogant, like if I knew that, my first thought would be like, how do I convince them that it's not cockiness, that it's true?
And I'm just like, how do I convince them that I'm humble. Not?
Yeah.
But I think that's like a big part of why our relationship works so well is just we are very different in our personalities, and I think that it's complementary to each other.
Yeah. And I think that, you kind of mentioned the extreme of like opposites attract, not necessarily being like, the rule, and then me saying like you don't necessarily want to be the same. I think complementary is like the best description, because I was thinking earlier, I was like, it's sort of like we stand on each other's shoulders in different areas.
Yeah.
Where it's like you stand on my shoulders, like, to innovate or to like push yourself, and then I stand on your shoulders, like honestly from like a principle standpoint, like where it's like sort of like giving me the structure, I guess, or like giving me the lines to keep myself focused enough to make sure that I make the progress that I'm like driven to like pursue, I guess.
Yeah I think that's
so. How do you know if you find that person? I mean it's weird to say that to you because like you and I both, like, I don't know that there's like a science to how you and I became you and I, but I don't know, like what attributes would you tell somebody to look for?
I don't know. I think, well, for me, I think I've talked about this and I've told this to so many of my friends, but when you and I first started dating, I always said like you were nothing that I expected and everything I ever wanted. And I know that sounds like super cheesy or whatever, but it's so true because I'm like, I felt like God put you like in my life like on purpose because
it's like you punishment.
No, it's just like we clicked, like it made sense. It's like all the things that I thought that I wanted in a guy were like very superficial, I guess, like, and it didn't really have any depth. And then I met you and I was just in like I had the superficial where I was attracted to you in like that kind of way, but there was so much more that I had not been treated the way that you treated me, in the past where, you just were always like building me up and like, just like the belief that you had in me, like you were always like a fan of me as a person. Like, and I thought like, that's kind of how I felt about you too. It's like, no, I like who this person is. Like you make me better. You push me to be like, more than like what I thought I could have done on my own. And I think that's like what a partnership is. Like in a relationship, it's like we're better together than we are apart.
Yeah. It's like, I think about it. It's like, I agree. We're not going to fight about this, not fighting, but like, it's totally true because I saw in you your qualities. And I'm like, what could I become with this person almost?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you see the best version of yourself through that person's eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that like kind of really sticks out to me, like looking back. But it is one of those things where, you can have these ideas of what you think that person is, and then when you see it and you start being in that relationship, I think that it doesn't mean it's not work and that you don't have to try, but it should feel when you're trying that it's not hard.
Yeah. It's not, that's the thing, is like, people always talk about like, oh, like marriage is so hard and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, marriage isn't hard for us. It is easy, but it doesn't mean that we don't work at it and that we don't have problems and we don't like whatever. It's just that it's easy, because if I am having an issue or you are having something, like, we communicate about it. Yeah. And the communication always isn't the most fun, but we're both open to hearing each other so that we can fix whatever the problem is.
I think it comes down to like when you have something that you value, you're willing to put the necessary time in for it. It's like being in shape. Like you and I both like value being in shape in eating healthy or just being healthy. And it's one of those things where it's like, so I have to work out every day. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Like that's not a huge sacrifice. That's all right.
That's fine.
I enjoy it for the most part, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think relationships that way too. It's like you might not always feel like taking that time to like invest in it day after day after day, but for the most part, like you should kind of enjoy it to a certain extent, and it should be a priority, and it should be something that you like. It's a process as opposed to like something you just like. I found the right person, so. Done.
Yeah, so it's it, and if we don't get along anymore, like it's because it's just done. Our time is over. No, like you have to keep working at those things. I think we've both I don't know. I think it's just easy because it's a priority.
Yeah. And
you're my priority. Over other things.
You're my priority. But I think if you're listening to this right now and you're listening with your significant other and it's a really, really quiet car ride and there's like some awkward laughter right now.
You probably need to break up.
You know, like just pull over for gas and just be like, you know, you should grab me like a Pepsi from inside. And they're like, a Pepsi? And you're like, yeah, Diet Pepsi. And then they go in and then you just peel out of there. And if you're the person getting the Diet Pepsi, you know what? You're better off.
Also, like, you know, you're probably from the Midwest if you're drinking Pepsi.
Yeah, it's true.
Like everyone else drinks Coke.
It's true. Yeah. Like a trash person drinking Pepsi. Well, you know, it's not the best. It's number 2. Number 2 for a reason.
Sweeter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is sweeter. Look into it. But yeah, that's pretty much all that we have today for not fighting. And for those of you that are listening or watching because you found us via Ezoic, my company, which I used our website for an example on stuff, and then I saw that we had a bunch of our company customers watching, which they probably watch this and they're like, I'm very unimpressed with what their executive puts out in terms of podcasts. Guys got gym shorts on and stuff. It's like, hey, it's pandemic. It's work from home. I'm comfortable. We record
also,
this
it's
on
Sunday, so it's like we want to be comfortable.
So anyways, if you're listening and you're like, what is this? Like, hopefully you've enjoyed it enough to where you're like, I don't know. I'm going to listen to this thing some more because I don't know.
Because I don't know.
Because, like, I just want to support the podcast.
Yeah, support, like, subscribe, please.
All those things. So, we want to thank everybody for watching another episode of
Not Fighting.